to the auditorium at Scranton High School for the February 11th, 2015 board meeting of the Scranton School District. Will we all please honor America and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Orr, roll call.
Mr. Casey?
Present.
Mr. Donahue?
Present.
Mr. Duffy?
Present.
Mr. Martinelli?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mrs. Oleski?
Present.
Dr. Irwan? Here. Mr. Sheridan?
Here.
Mr. Dewey?
Present.
9 present.
We're going to honor and recognize tonight some outstanding accomplishments from some of our student athletes in the Scranton School District. Mr. Casey?
It is the recommendation of the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolutions be approved. Whereas the Board of School Directors is always eager to recognize students who have distinguished themselves academically in extracurricular activities, and whereas Stephen Capel, an outstanding senior student at West Scranton High School, has earned his 100th career victory in wrestling on Saturday, January 10th, 2015, and whereas Stephen Capel has been a member of the wrestling team at West Scranton High School for the past 4 seasons, and whereas Stephen was selected as the Scranton Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week on Monday, January 12th, for earning his 100th career victory, and whereas Stephen is also a member of the cross-country and track and field teams at West Scranton High School. He is also a member of the Invader Pride Club, and whereas Stephen has applied to Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology, where he will major in electrical technology and continue his wrestling career. Now therefore, and be it resolved, that the following congratulations of the Board of Education is extended to Stephen Capel, his mother, Val Capel, and his teachers and coaches at West Scranton High School. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question? Stephen, would you come forward, please?
Don't we have to vote on it?
We need a vote, sir.
Oh, excuse me. Mrs. Orr, roll call, please.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
After all the resolutions for the student athletes who are being honored, we'd just like to take a picture out in the hallway with the rest of you. So after all 5, if you could just meet myself, Mr. McGregor, in the back.
(10A3).
It is the recommendation of the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Board of School Directors is always eager to recognize students who have distinguished themselves academically and in extracurricular activities, and whereas Kyle Kroptavich, an outstanding senior at West Scranton High School, has earned his 100th career victory in wrestling on Saturday, January 31st, 2015, and where Kyle Kroptavich has been a member of the wrestling team at West Scranton High School the past 4 seasons, and whereas Kyle is in the National Honor Society at West Scranton High School, and Kyle was a member of the varsity football team for the past 3 years and a member of the Red Cross and Build and Invader clubs at West Scranton High School. And whereas Kyle has been accepted to Thaddeus Stevens College of Technology, where he will major in electrical technology and continue his football career. Now therefore, be it resolved that the official congratulations of the Board of Education is extended to Kyle Kraptavich, his parents Kim and Ron Kraptavich, and his teachers and coaches at West Scranton High School. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question? Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Ron, could you come forward, please?
It is the recommendation of the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Board of School Directors is always eager to recognize students who have distinguished themselves academically and in extracurricular activities, and whereas Cameron Van Wert, an outstanding senior student at West Scranton High School, has earned his 100th career victory in wrestling on Saturday, December 27th, 2014. And whereas Cameron Van Wert has been a member of the wrestling team at West Scranton High School the past 4 seasons, and whereas Cameron was selected as the Scranton Times-Tribune Athlete of the Week on Monday, December 29th for earning his 100th career victory, and whereas Cameron is an honor roll student at West Scranton High School and was a member of the varsity football team the past 3 seasons and a member of the ECAC, FB, LA, and Invader Pride clubs. And whereas Cameron has applied to Lackawanna College, where he would like to enroll in the Act 120 police program. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the official congratulations of the Board of Education is extended to Cameron Van Wert, his guardians, Tana Zaccanino and Carol Van Wert, and his teachers and coaches at West Scranton High School. Respectfully submitted.
Second. On the question? Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Before I read this resolution, I just want to apologize if I butcher any of the names in this. It is the recommendation of the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Board of School Directors is always eager to recognize students and teams who have distinguished themselves academically and in various extracurricular activities. Whereas Niaz Bakradze, a senior at West Scranton High School, is being honored for capturing his senior at Scranton High School, is being honored for capturing his 100th victory as a varsity wrestler at Scranton High School. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the official congratulations of the board is extended to Niaz Bakradze, his parents, Hushnia Bakradze, and Mahmoud Azadov, the Scranton High School wrestling team, his coaches, teachers, and the entire Scranton High School community. Respectfully submitted.
Second. On the question. Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolutions be approved. Whereas the Board of School Directors is always eager to recognize students and teams who have distinguished themselves academically and in various extracurricular activities. Whereas Kazim Bakriev, a senior at Scranton High School, is being honored for capturing his 100th victory as a varsity wrestler at Scranton High School. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the official congratulations of the board is extended to Kazim Bakriev, his parents Sardal and Halida Bakriev, the Scranton High School wrestling team, his coaches, teachers, and the entire Scranton High School community. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Second. On the question. Mrs. Orr?
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Verwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
It is the recommendation of the Athletics and Stadium Committee that the following resolution be approved. Whereas the Board of School Directors is always eager to recognize students and teams who have distinguished themselves academically and in various extracurricular activities. Whereas the Scranton High School wrestling team captured the Lackawanna League Championship Tournament and the District 2 AAA Wrestling Championship on Saturday, January 31st, 2015. Whereas this is the first time in school history for such accomplishment. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the official congratulations of the board is extended to the Scranton High School wrestling team, the coaches, and the entire Scranton High School community. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question. Mrs. Orr?
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Verwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
The boys from the Scranton High wrestling team and their coaches want to come forward, please, for recognition. Ladies and gentlemen, the District 2 AAA Wrestling Champs 2015.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
God bless you. Nice work. What's up, man?
Now, prior to the next presentation, resolution, Commissioner Pat O'Malley would like to say a few words prior to our next resolution.
Thank you. President Dwyer, Vice President Sheridan, school board, staff, administration. I'm here for a little bit of unfinished business. In 2011, we named Isaac Tripp Elementary School in the 3 floors and the library. And at the time, I thought that we actually had named the street. All we did was discuss it. So I'd just like to thank all of you for what you're about to do tonight. I spoke to Mr. Sheridan a few weeks ago about this unfinished business, and he brought it to everyone's attention at the last meeting. Chief Robeson, or Captain Robeson, was a hero of Scranton and all of the communities in the surrounding areas. He was there to protect us as a firefighter, and he was here to protect his family. And I just think that the street leading up to Isaac Tripp Elementary would be a great opportunity for us to honor who he was and what he meant to the community. Not only did he go to John Marshall School, but he lived down Orm Street his entire life. And I'd just like to applaud all of you for the resolution which you're about to be voting on in the next couple of seconds. I think that this would be a great opportunity for the people of West Scranton and of Scranton to honor a great hero, Captain Robeson. I think his wife is here actually tonight. I'm not sure if she'd like to say a few words. Linda? would you like to say a few words?
Mrs. Rosen, would you like to come forward?
He said no. Yeah.
Sorry to do that to you, Linda, but he's a hero of the community. But thank you, Board, for what you're about to do. Really appreciate it. And Vice President Sheridan for bringing it forward.
Welcome, Mrs. Rosen.
Thank you. Honestly, all I can say is thank you very much. He would be very surprised, probably, but we're very honored that you are considering this, so thank you very much.
Mr. President, I'd just like to say before I read this resolution that it was my honor and privilege that the time I served my term in the police department that I worked with Jimmy Robeson as a fireman on many fire scenes, and I couldn't say more about an outstanding fireman, that he was dedicated to his job, his family, and this community. And it's my honor and my privilege to read this resolution tonight for Jim because he is surely a hero in my eyes. Thank you. (10M1) to the members of the school Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton. It is the recommendation of the Buildings and Grounds Committee that the following be approved. Whereas a private road entering into Isaac Tripp School is unnamed, and whereas Captain James L. Robeson lost his life in the line of duty fighting a fire as a Scranton firefighter, and whereas Captain James L. Robeson is a hero who exhibited bravery in the line of duty, and therefore be it resolved that the private road adjacent to Isaac Tripp Elementary School is hereby renamed Captain James L. Robeson Way. Respectfully submitted.
Second. On the question. These aren't the times for a lot of words. Heroes. Heroes. Mrs. Orr.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Now we have communications to the board.
Yes. In a caucus this evening and last Monday night, there were discussions regarding real estate, litigation, and personnel.
Visiting delegations. Our sign-in sheet has Rosemary Boland of the Scranton Federation of Teachers.
Good evening, directors. I would just like to bring one point forward. While I know this was discussed at a work session.
You may use the microphone behind you.
You don't usually need that. I'll go backwards. I know this was brought up at a work session recently. However, at the last regular meeting of this board, there was an issue regarding professional leave to attend. And some of my members had to put this on their own private credit cards. They didn't ask to go. They were told they had to go by central administration. So they attended the conferences in good faith, placed all the bills on their own private credit cards, and then I get told that they weren't going to be reimbursed. And somehow there was some communication flaw here, because that should not have ever occurred. I completely agree with the board that you, as a school board, should know prior to approving any of these things. However, I don't think it was right that the members first were told to place all these bills on their own private credit cards when they were told they had to attend these meetings. conferences. So in the future, we need to get this absolutely positively straightened out about the use of a personal credit card and then not getting reimbursed in a timely fashion. So if we need to sit down and discuss this further, obviously I would be willing to do that. But I would like this not ever to happen again, because, you know, when you go to a conference, if the conference costs $100, when you put that on your credit card, you don't pay that $100 off, you're paying interest. And that's not how the reimbursement comes in. So in the future, if this sort of thing is going to occur, and as I say, I hope it doesn't, I would appreciate it if we would tack on the interest owed to my people when they have to use their own credit cards. I'm not in favor of that to begin with, the use of a personal credit card, but if it has to happen, and maybe it will, and the payment is not timely, then obviously we're going to ask the board to add an interest payment on top of the payment. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, Liz.
Gerard Hetman, Lackawanna County.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the Scranton School District. Gerard Hetman from Lackawanna County's Community Relations Department. Our first item this evening is an annual program that many of you are familiar with, and it's one that we've seen the district have great success with in past years, and that would be the Lackawanna County Commission for Women's annual Women's History Month bookmark contest. And very simply, this contest is open to all students who attend school in Lackawanna County who are enrolled in 7th grade, be grade 7. And basically it's open, there's no requirements on academic level or ability. It's open to all 7th grade students across the curriculum. Of course, how it's administered here in the district is up to your administration, but we would encourage all students to participate. And there is a first, second, and third place awarded by the Women's Commission. And last year's first place winner, I'm not sure about second or third place, but I know the first place winner was a student at West Scranton Intermediate School. And just from what I remember off the top of my head, over several years previous, we've seen winners come from particular West Intermediate, but also I believe some of the district's other schools as well. So it's, again, we know it's been well received. And all it takes to enter is that students who participate select a woman they'd like to profile. The Women's Commission likes to keep it now local, so they ask students to select a woman who has been significant in county history in Lackawanna County, and they just need to do a sketch or a drawing or a painting of that woman on 11.5 by 17 sheet of paper, and then an essay approximately 100 words accompanying that as to why they feel this woman is significant to the people and history and culture of Lackawanna County. So again, we'll leave the information with you, and it's something that I'm sure will be familiar to your teachers and students, and we hope to see good participation and possibly some winners here from the district again as well. The second item we'll leave also is the annual schedule, the master schedule of camps, clinics, leagues, and programs that Lackawanna County's Parks and Recreation Department conducts, in this case during the 2015 calendar year. And many of these do occur, of course, in the warmer months when school is not in session. And I know that the district, all districts, look for ways to keep students engaged, active, physically fit during the summer months when they're not in school. And many of the programs on here are just up that alley, so we encourage you to share them with students, parents and guardians, teachers and faculty as they come up, and of course before students head out for the summer. The schedule makes it very easy to do that. Currently, the only program we have coming up the next few weeks is our annual Winter Golf Clinic, which of course is held at South Scranton Intermediate School. It's a long ongoing program, and as always we thank the district for your cooperation in hosting that. But one item we should note, and this isn't really a program but rather a facility that's available, is at McDade Park now for the second year in a row we have a designated area for sledding and sleigh riding. I know it sounds like a simple item to note, but over the years that was always against park regulations, and folks would still do it anyway, sometimes in an unsafe manner. But this year there is a designated hill set up just on the left side of the park when you drive in, just past the coal miner statue, where anyone can do again sledding and sleigh riding. We just ask that they obey all posted rules and regulations of the park, and also if they are traveling there during inclement weather, perhaps a snow day, I know you don't want to have any more, but if there are any, we ask that they drive safely and travel safely to reach the park. We don't want anyone to have an accident while trying to access the facility. You can always wait until the roads are clear. And then we'll just leave a few items from Penn State Extension's office in Lackawanna County, their annual Dining with Diabetes program for adults who wish to combat type 2 diabetes. That's a series of exercise lessons and also cooking lessons for individuals who are afflicted by that ailment to help them better manage their illness. That's all we have for now. Of course, we'll remind you about the Parks and Rec programs as they come up throughout the year. Again, the master schedule we believe is a great help, and I hope to see the district participate and many of your students out there. Thank you as always.
Thank you, Gerard. Mr. Bob Bolus.
Good evening, members of the board. Bob Bolus, Scranton. It was encouraging tonight to see the young gentlemen come in here that are achievers. They're the future of what our community is going to be. And we try to set the discipline in, which they've showed discipline, and the integrity and the credibility that they would want to have as they grow up into adults, and hopefully they help build this city. I came here for a specific reason, and this isn't a personal attack. This is something that has festered with me, and I think it's festered with a lot of other people. It's a question of credibility. It's a question of integrity. And I'm going to direct this to Mr. Dawai. I took a personal offense as a resident of the city of Scranton and an individual who has a Lebanese heritage, which I'm very proud of. When I heard Mr. Dawai denounce the fact that he had a relative that's a candidate for a position here in Scranton, that it was a relative, it wasn't a relative, or it's a relative that's distant, doesn't make a difference. When I was a young man growing up, our family in the trucking business, everything else, I carried stocks of bananas for Dawai and Azuri. They were the banana kings of this area. As life went on, I became a trucking company, and I hauled bananas for Dawai and Azuri. We're all interrelated in one way or the other. And it's an adage that I would look at and say, how pregnant is pregnant? Either you are or you aren't. And in this instance, Mr. Dawai, a relative is a relative, whether it's here in the United States or it's a relative over in Lebanon. In one way or the other, we're all interconnected. And I think to take a responsibility, we're all trying to reinstill integrity and credibility in the school board on all the issues that have gone on and throughout the whole county. It's my request, and this is as a gentleman to gentleman, that you recuse yourself from any voting regarding this individual. I want you to instill what you stood on the panel here and why you came a board member. And that's for integrity and credibility. And I don't want you to go backwards on that. I would like you to stand up as a man, as a director, and a leader in this community, and as an educator for many years, and do what's right. And that's to stand back and let the other members make a decision. It's an issue of credibility and integrity, and I would ask that you do that tonight. I want you to show us what this stands for. A relative's a relative. I don't care how distant it is, whether you can marry a relative that's that far back. Right in this day and age, you can pretty much marry just about anybody from any race, creed, or whatever. That's not the issue here. The issue is the question of impropriety and credibility, and I don't want to see that deter because of a statement you made or a questionable issue. Thank you.
We have no one else signed up on our speaker sheet. Visiting delegations, report from the PTA representative, Mrs. Melinda Crocus.
Sorry, I was still listening to that. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. I feel like it's been a long time since I've been standing here, actually, since we've all been in the same room. I just have a couple of concerns that parents brought to me recently, and then one actual report on what we've been doing at the PTA recently. The first one has to do with Whittier and the two schools. The parents, it seems that there's a question of what the plans are regarding the two schools. Are they to remain one entity with two principals, or are they officially to be separated into two schools? There is the understanding that there's some filing going on to actually make the Nativity School its own school. And if this is true, if there's a yes to this, the parents are concerned about what the motivation is behind it, what is the long-term plan, and how does this decision fit into the long-term plan, basically. Is there any way for their voices to be heard on this matter at this point? So there's just a lot of questioning going around about that. So they would like some clear communication on this matter. The practical side to this for the PTA particularly is that if indeed the Nativity School is going to be its own entity, they would like to get a PTA started. There are parents who are interested in doing that and there's a certain timeline that it has to happen because the PTA does raise money for activities and whatnot for these schools. They would like to know what's going on so they can start acting and actively fundraising if need be and organizing their own board. Their only concern about this is that it would be the only school that has only 2 grades so that their capability of fundraising and everything kind of goes down. So anyway, if that's not the case, then those are moot points. Second has to do with a parent and parents coming from Scranton High School and the travel for the students on Olive Street. This one I have actually I'll hand to you. What you have in front of you is a photograph taken by a student on his walk home on Olive Street right as he's going underneath the train tracks. Now, the parent basically has expressed that this place is always dangerous. I'm quoting from her email to me that accompanied the photograph, but with the snow and ice and the way it's being taken care of, it's beyond dangerous. The students are forced into the traffic, she says, for blocks. You can see in the photograph that they're up beyond the train tracks, a whole line of students going up there, and there's just great concern for their safety here. So they're wondering if there's any way that you can do something about this, communicating with the city about making sure that area is at least plowed and free for the students to at least get on the sidewalk so they're not in the street with the cars. But maybe also the other concern about it always being dangerous, it's an area that we may have to look at since our students are required to walk to the high school to look at. It's very narrow there and whatnot. For the third point, finally, I just wanted to announce, I know I had sent out a late invitation for the Founders Day Reflections Art Contest that we run every year. So Sunday we did have that contest awards dinner. This year's theme was "The world would be a better place if," and the students' artwork was supposed to fill in that last bit. The students ranged from preschool and kindergarten budding artists to maturing artists in grades 1 through 12. So we had this evening with these teeny little wonderful preschoolers up until our seniors. Their work was brilliant. It was brilliantly insightful. They painted, photographed, choreographed, composed music and literary pieces that envisioned a world, in their words, with less fighting, bullying, to which a poem read, "I wish the birds on Twitter had soundproof birdhouses," pollution, girl drama, and boy problems. And the more positive bit, because there was a lot more of that, more recycling. These are the titles from their pieces. Listening to each other, holding hands, love, flowers, love, friends, love, positive change. And a final turn to the reader, observer of all of this artwork that night was really to the adults in the room with a profoundly serious question. And I quote the literary piece, "Do you think you can take on these tasks now and make the world a better place?" So I just wanted to share with you the kind of extraordinary artwork that we had coming from the district that evening. I'd again like to announce and invite all of you. Tomorrow is our area council PTA meeting at 7 p.m. and we're now meeting at the West Scranton High School for the rest of the year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. President, before we go on. Mrs. Orr?
Yes.
Can you maybe send a letter over to Dennis Gallagher, DPW Director, and ask him if that's the city property that we're talking about on Olive Street, to maybe possibly we can get some crews over there to have that cleaned, because I can see it clearly from that picture that it's a danger for our students to be walking. It just indicated that the car was walking there and they were walking right alongside the car trying to get through that area. So if they can work with us and maybe clean that area up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Mr. President.
Report from our student representatives. The representatives from West Scranton, or are they here? West Scranton?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Price. I'm the corresponding secretary of the senior class at West Scranton High School, and I will be speaking on behalf of the class president tonight.
And I am Austin Sorbong, Vice President of Student Council, and I'll be in place of our president.
It's hard to believe that January has already passed and we are now upon the month of February. During January, not many events occurred, but we were busy, very busy nonetheless. One of these events was a fundraiser to benefit the Coaches vs. Cancer program, and we raised a total of more than $3,000. Also in January, after their audition, the Chorus Club was accepted to perform in Walt Disney World. Members will get to embark on an incredible experience singing for many parents, tourists, and casting agents for Disney and the Magic Kingdom. We would like to congratulate and wish a good luck to the Chorus Club as they travel to Florida.
In addition, auditions for the spring musical took place for the Addams Family. This show will take place on March 27th and 28th at 7 p.m. and the 29th at 2 p.m. As always, we ask to support the arts as the funding is slowly starting to shrink. The arts are something that doesn't have a season, it is year-round. In the month of February, members of the orchestra competed in the annual PMEA District Orchestra Competition from the 4th to the 6th. And on the 11th to the 13th, they will be competing in the PMEA Regional Band Competition. On the 8th, several students were honored at a PTA Reflections Dinner at Fiorelli's. Congratulations to those students.
This weekend, starting the 13th, running through the 16th, the annual Spirit Week scavenger hunt will take place. Each class will receive a list of items in which they need to complete to receive Spirit Week points. This is a very enthusiastic and exciting event that the student body looks forward to. On the 17th and 18th, juniors will present their graduation projects to a panel of teachers set up like a mock college or job interview. And also on the 17th, there will be a wrestling officials meeting in the gym at 7 p.m. There will be a coaches preseason meeting on the 23rd in the gym as well. From the 25th through the 27th, the Chorus Club members will compete at the PMEA Regional Chorus Competition, and this concludes the events thus far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our representatives from Scranton High School.
Good evening. I'm Corey Naughton.
I'm Bridget Stuckert.
I'd just like to inform you on some things going on in the school the past few weeks. During last week, we had a very successful dress done day where we were able to raise over $750. The senior class will have a dress done day on Friday to benefit the family of Louis Velez during his recovery from surgery. The Scranton High Night Rhythms performed at the law enforcement rally Sunday afternoon, and we're proud to say that we are PSP strong here at Scranton High. And we'd also like to extend our congratulations to the wrestling team on their district title. Our annual semi-formal dance was held this past Saturday at Fiorelli's. 450 students were in attendance. The freshmen at our school will also have an opportunity for their own semi on March 7th.
Preparations for the spring play, The Music Man, continue. You can note our new addition to the auditorium, the Widow Peru's home. There's also a spiral staircase, which is blocked by the curtain. There will be a dress-down day for Coaches vs. Cancer, and the game will be announced next week. The football banquet will be held at the school on February 15th. Carrie Condell recently signed to Post University, a D2 school, with a soccer scholarship. 2 more students will commit to colleges as well tomorrow. Jordan O'Hearn will commit to Lock Haven University to continue his football career. Charlie Paps will also commit tomorrow to Kutztown University for football as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A report from our PTA, or excuse me, from our PSBA representative.
I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Donahue. Solicitor's report from Attorney Menora.
Nothing new to report.
And in lieu of Mr. Marichak's absence, sitting in more than ably, Aaron Keating from the Acting Superintendent's report.
Nothing right now.
Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is a consent agenda, which contains items 10 through 14. We need a motion.
I make a motion to accept
the consent agenda.
Consent agenda, yes.
Second. On the Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Let's see, and we're doing 10B1?
10A1.
Excuse me. 10A1.
It is the recommendation of the Athletic and Stadium Committee that the following be appointed to the coaching positions as indicated for the 2014-2015 school year. Salaries in accordance with the collective bargaining agreements. Scranton High School, Tony Russomano, Junior High Wrestling Head Coach. Chris Geneleza, Junior High Wrestling Assistant Coach. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question? Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
And 10F1, Mr. Duffy.
To the members of the Board of Directors, City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Health and Safety Committee that the following resolution is approved. Whereas the Wright Center has received a grant for school-based health centers in the 3 of our intermediate schools in the Scranton School District, and whereas the Wright Center will utilize a nurse practitioner to work in conjunction with current LPNs and CSNs, and therefore be it resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby approves the Wright Center use of Scranton school-based healthcare centers to benefit health and safety of our students and their families in our intermediate schools. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
On the question. Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Motion 10I1, resolution. Mr. Martinelli.
To the members of the school board of the city of Scranton, it is a recommendation of the policy committee that the following resolution be considered for adoption. Whereas the Scranton School District has been working with the PSBA to update school district policy manual, and whereas the Special Education Department has made changes to the special education evaluations and independent educational evaluation. And now it be resolved that the Scranton School Board approves the recommended changes to number 113.3 as attached of the policy manual. I so move.
Second.
On the question. Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Resolution 10I2, Mr. Martinelli.
To the members of the school board of the city of Scranton, The Legislation and Federal Programs Committee presents the following resolution for your consideration. Whereas Act 327501B requires bodies of school districts, townships, boroughs, and cities to appoint voting delegates and one or more alternate delegates to serve as the tax collection committee representatives, and whereas the Scranton School Board wishes to appoint Kyle Donahue as the primary delegate, and whereas the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Deputy Superintendent of Finance Greg Sunday as the new first alternate delegate, and whereas the Scranton School Board wishes to appoint Assistant Business Manager Pat Laffey as the second alternate delegate, and therefore be resolved that the Scranton School Board hereby appoints Kyle Donahue as primary delegate, Greg Sunday as the first alternate delegate, and Pat Laffey as the second alternate delegate to the TCC, and they are hereby authorized to vote on behalf of the Scranton School District. I so move.
Second.
Having been seconded, on question? Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Motion 10J3. Mr. Sheridan?
Members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, the employees have completed at least 3 years of professional services with satisfactory ratings for achieving the status of professional employees under the school code, and its recommendation to the superintendent of schools that professional contracts be issued as following individuals. So moved, so attached.
Second.
Having been seconded, on the question. I'd like to congratulate all of the listed professionals that we employ in the district for having attained their permanent certification. And I'm very happy about this because there's a number of names here. There are former students of mine at the University of Scranton, as well as here at Scranton High School. It's a good night. Probably understated, but congratulations to everyone. Mrs. Orr.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
10J4, members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the superintendent that the following be approved: permissions to attend meetings, so per attached.
Second.
Having been seconded, on the question. Mrs. Orr.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
10J5, members of the Board of School Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools that the individuals as listed below be appointed to professional positions in the Scranton School District. So per attached.
Second.
Having been seconded, on the question. Mrs. Orr.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
That's all under personnel, Mr. President.
No, there isn't. There's still one.
10J6.
Oh, I'm sorry.
One
She
more.
did. I didn't realize it there.
I'm no longer the chairman.
I got it. Members of the Board of Directors of the City of Scranton, is the recommendation of the Personnel Committee that the following be approved: Arthur J. McKenna, Behavioral Technician, Monticello; Donna Furco, an Intermediate LPN. Appointments are effective upon receipt of the federal criminal records, immigration, medical, and child abuse reports. Salary in accordance with the appropriate salary schedules. So moved.
Second.
Having been seconded, on the question. Mrs. Orr.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
Now I'm done for this. First time, Mr. President. To change that name.
For special education, Mrs. Oleski, Resolution 10N1.
To the members of the Board of Directors, the Special Education Committee hereby recommends the following resolution for your consideration. Whereas the school district and the city of Scranton, and subject to the administration procedures and civil suits within the appropriateness of the student's special education program, has been challenged or suits have been filed. ODR numbers 15788, 1415, AS, and 15764, 1415, KE. Whereas the parties have reached a settlement agreement in the matter upon the terms and conditions previously provided for your consideration. Therefore, be it resolved that the settlements as attached hereto be approved upon the terms and conditions as described, and the superintendent or the directors of special education are hereby authorized to execute any or all documents necessary to consummate this matter, respectively submitted.
Second.
Having been seconded on the question. Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwan?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
9 affirmative.
10N2, members of the Board of the School Directors in the City of Scranton, the Special Education Committee presents the following resolution for your consideration. Be it resolved that the district acknowledges the difficulty in obtaining substitutes and paraprofessionals and personal care assistant positions, and be it resolved that there are currently 6 until further notice positions currently needed to address special education needs. Now, therefore, it be finally resolved that the positions be filled to the best of the district's ability, and the board understands its commitment in both salary and potential health care obligations. Respectfully submitted.
Second.
Having been seconded on the question.
On the question, Mr. President, I would just like to make the comment that I'm going to be voting no against this. Not that I don't know if these positions are needed or not, but we really need to get special education spending under control, given our current budget deficits. Thank you.
On the question, anyone else?
Well, I would just like to add that these are positions that are needed to fill their IEP, and we have to, and we're obligated to fill the child's IEP, so these positions are definitely necessary. That's why it's as a substitute till the end of the year, or until need be, if a child would leave the district, then that position would be terminated. Thank you.
I'm going to back up Mr. Oleski, saying that, yes, it is a requirement by this board with the IEP, like Mrs. Oleski just said, that we're mandatory to make sure that these individuals are one-on-one, and we need these positions in line.
My only point is that we need to really start getting special education, the way we spend money on special education, under control, and we need to reevaluate that.
And Director Donahue, I think that all of us agree with that point, that the money that we're spending as a district and as a nation on special education seems to have gone exponentially out of control. And I don't know where the answers are going to come from, but we have to stay vigilant. And we just have to make sure that we fulfill everything that we're legally obligated to perform. Mrs. Scalarazzi?
I'd just like to add that in terms of the way special education is funded in this state, it is not a dollar to dollar. It's not even a close representation, Kyle, of what we're required to provide out. And that anytime we agree as an IEP team to make a determination in the child's plan that requires a service or a support that's costly to the district, I can assure you that any cost to not fulfill that is going to cost this district at least twice, if not more, and we've been in that position before. So when I came to the board, it was in an effort to support the current population of special education children that we have in the district. My second point that I'd just like to represent here tonight is that at the federal level, it's my understanding that there's a bill before Congress right now for 40% fair funding towards IDEA PMEA. I will be submitting some information towards you to get towards our local representatives to be able to get some information into our federal government. We desperately need to be funded for the support of the special education children we have to educate. I agree with you 100%.
Gene, I have a quick question. So these 6 appointments, clarify this for me, are for 6 new students who just came to the district?
They're for 6 students. They're for 6 students whose IEPs have deemed necessary for them to have personal care assistance. Some of them, several of them on that list, have come in. The issue, meaning just enrolled in the district, the issue that we have is that our current list is depleted. So my ability to place that support with that student consistently is not present. And so I'm making you aware as a board that is the situation that we're currently in, so that we're not litigated for that position.
So, I don't know if you answered my question. The way it was presented to me was 6 students came in from out of state that required this assistance. That's why we're providing it now.
You are providing the assistance because the IEP team has made a determination. They're not from out of state.
That's the information I got about it now.
Didn't we discuss this, that some of these came from New York with their regular?
Oh, I'm sorry. If you're asking me, the IEPs have deemed necessary for, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question, Mr. McAndrews. So the IEPs have come in to the district with these positions that require personal care assistants and paraprofessionals, meaning a one-on-one for the student. So my process is to obtain that from our personnel department. Unfortunately, at this time, what I've been told is that we do not have those individuals on staff to provide that support for the IEP. And so I'm coming to this board to inform you of that situation so that it can be remedied and corrected.
So the fact is that we have 4 students coming in that needs one-on-one. We're required by law. We don't have anybody on the list to take care of it right now, so we need to fulfill the law requirement, right?
According to the child's current plan, okay. Yes.
Where are you getting the money for this? The state paying? The federal government paying?
We have monies that come in from both of those sources. I can tell you that the monies that we spend are not equal to the monies we receive. And that's a concern for every district across the Commonwealth.
It costs us money, right?
Everything costs us money. You are correct. We do not receive a fair dollar for dollar in terms of what special education supports are there. That's an issue across the country.
How will they be?
Because of these IEPs, our regular students really are being hurt. And that's my concern. Because the way we are working it in this district, sometimes we have a problem in the school with the IEPs and special education, that sometimes there's no education going on in a classroom or in a school. I think we better get together and start realizing, should we rewrite these IEPs and be very careful how we write them.
I have 2 questions. One, when a student comes from another district, I have no clue. Do we rewrite the IEP in accordance, how it was in their former district?
We do. We have a process where we review records upon every entry. And what that means is our school psychologist reviews the academic record and behavioral record that we have on file for the child from the former district. So even when they move in from out of state. Then within 30 days, this district does a review and does an annual IEP for that student. It's at that meeting that information, regarding services and supports is made and determined by our principal, who sits as the LEA, the local education agency representative, my teachers, general education, special education, parent, and student.
Okay, and second, if this passes tonight, will they be paid as a regular day-to-day sub, or will they be handled as a permanent sub?
No, day-to-day sub.
Day-to-day subbing, so at that rate?
At that rate.
Okay.
Mrs. Orr?
Mr. Donahue?
No.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Mr. Martinelli?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mrs. Oleski?
Yes.
Dr. Irwin?
Yes.
Mr. Sheridan?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
8 affirmative, 1 negative, motion passes.
Nothing further. Director Hillel.
If there's anything under new business, we can entertain that now. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
So granted. Thank you, everyone. Drive safe.
Anything you need.